Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'll be doing something that's a little bit different, but over the past year or so, ever since the pandemic, I've gotten really into like personal finance and everything like that. So I wanted to do a video on how I've learned to become someone who is a super saver, not a super spender. I used to be like, didn't go overboard, but I didn't really think too much about where my money was going and just being conscientious of, investing in myself, in the future. So I feel like I've done like a pretty big like 180 compared to what I was prior to the pandemic, and I think that really has put I feel like it's put everyone's finances in a different perspective. So here are tips and tricks on how I learned to become a super saver. So without further ado, let's get started. So tip number one is to set short-term and long-term goals for something that you want to work towards. So one of my short-term goals is to do a backpacking trip across Europe when I graduate from my PhD, hopefully within the next year or so. So this is something that I know I've been planning for a while, and so this is a good something short term that I know that my saving kind of I can appreciate and really enjoy kind of down the road. So I've been saving money for this for the past few years, and I've just been putting a little bit of each paycheck into that specific savings account. So that's something that has been really beneficial. It's been really good because I can see that money grow over time, and I know I'm working towards something that I don't have to wait 30-40 years down the line to really appreciate the value of it. So it's good to kind of have a short-term goal within the next 5 years that you can work towards, that you can really appreciate, and then it also gets you kind of into the budgeting kind of world as well. And then for long term, I should have started this earlier, but I've really been investing in my Roth IRA and maxing it out. So I was able to max it out for 2020, and I want to do the same thing for 2021. And like, this is really important too, because this is like a long-term goal. So like a long-term goal I can have is that if I continue down the path that I'm doing where I max out my Roth IRA every year, I'll be able to retire at 65 a millionaire. And so this is something like, I think, a long-term goal that it is achievable to do if you just stay on top of things. It keeps you within the routine of like saving your money and investing in yourself. And so now that I kind of gotten that mindset of like, okay, these are things I'm gonna like spoil myself on, for a Europe trip or my retirement, like I think it gets you excited about learning like to save your money. So tip number two that really kind of shift the transition into being a spender to a saver was, if there's something I really want, I wait on it and see if I still want it. So this is like very true. Like I used to just buy things right away without really thinking much of it, and then I would invest in something and then play with it or use it for a month and then just kind of forget about it. So I've been kind of shifting this perspective into like, if there's something I really want, then I wait like a 24-hour rule. If there is this, I haven't bought clothes in like a while, but if there is this like outfit that I really want, I can look at it and then I can wait 24 hours before I decide if I want to do this. And I've honestly been doing this a year for the Nintendo Switch. I know I really want it, and I've been really wanting it for a long time, but I think because my mindset has shifted now, and I'm like, I don't really want to spend that money on that. And so it's really interesting to see, because pre-pandemic Lexie would have bought it right away, but now I've gotten to be really conscientious about being like, yes, I still want it, but I'm gonna save my money for that. So tip number three is to put everything that you're buying in perspective. I think the biggest thing that helped me was like, okay, if I'm gonna be buying like this book or whatever, how many hours of like my work day does it take to pay for that? And I think it really puts in perspective how much like you are actually making versus your spending, and it puts in perspective how much you actually have to achieve or like work in order to get that. So again, with the Nintendo Switch, like I'm like, that's like basically almost a week's worth of my paycheck, and I don't really want to spend that on on something right now. So it really puts in perspective, and then when you kind of really have that like actual quantity of like something physical you have to do to order to get that money, then it totally changes your mindset. tip number 4 is pretty straightforward, but it is to actually set a budget and stick to it. So this is something I've been doing. I've been creating little spreadsheets on how I'm going to break down each paycheck for each month, and it's made it really easy too, because I know which like monthly expenses I have to do. I have my health insurance, I have my car insurance, and those things, so I can put away money from each paycheck into my specific account that is like directly deposit, like I take withdrawals from. So like it's easier that I don't have to think about it. All the money is already there, and then the remaining money is that goes to my other savings account, my Roth IRA, and then the remaining in my like checking account is what I can use for things that I want or need for the next like 2 weeks or so. So that's really helped really put it in perspective, because I'm like, okay, I have allotted myself this much amount of money, and that is what I'm going to be sticking to for the remainder of the, you know, pay period. So I've gotten really good at really sticking to that, and if there is something I know I need to, you know, pay in the future, I plan on saving that money in advance. So I have to pay, like after my scholarship and everything, I usually have to pay around like $200 a semester. So I don't have to pay anything over the summer because I don't take any classes, but in the fall I usually have to pay like $220 in change for that. So starting in May, I'm going to be taking money out of each paycheck and putting that in, like putting that money aside, so that by the time the, you know, fall semester comes around, I'll already have that money already available to kind of pay that final, you know, tuition fee. So I find that has been really useful, and it's just really paid my way forward in kind of having that money already there because I was planning ahead. So tip number 5 is to not be too restrictive. And I think this is really important because it is so easy to be like, do this cold turkey, that it takes like, you're not allowing yourself to kind of, you know, treat yourself every now and then that can kind of lead to a kind of impulse buying spree down the line. So it's okay to give yourself some flexibility in what you're doing. Like, it doesn't have to be so rigid that you beat yourself up after being like, oh, I spent $2 more than I was allowed to this month. I think you have to give yourself some flexibility and not be too restrictive, because that can lead to bad habits down the line. And so I found that's been really useful. I'm not so rigid in my, you know, budgeting routine that I can't, you know, be flexible when other things happen, or if there's something that comes up that was an unexpected cost. So I think that it's really important. So I don't know. I think that's like I think that's good with all things too. Like people say on diets, like you can't be so regimented in like diets or just in anything in life. So I think it's good to be able to have some flexibility, but you know, kind of stick to the guidelines, and then it's okay to kind of color outside the edges every now and then. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your kind of saving tips are, and how you kind of shifted your mindset even from being like a super spender to a super saver and all that stuff. How has the pandemic really changed that? So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.